The impossible, whatever remains, however improbable, must be true.
And it is not a question of a little occultism or a touch of mysticism, Mr. Denton. It is vampires. It's a host of damned souls of telepaths.
I am thy father's spirit, doomed for a certain term to walk the night.
Here, the old gods aren't dead.
And what of the true god?
He's dead. Can't complain.
People assume that time is a strict progression of cause to effect, but actually, from a non-linear, non-subjective viewpoint, it's more like a big ball of wibbly-wobbly, timey-wimey stuff.
You're listening to Paranormal UK Radio.
Hi everybody, this is Irene and Mark, the host of the Paranormal UK Radio show, the flagship show on the Paranormal UK Radio Network. And I'm here again today with Mark Johnson.
Yes, hello.
Hello, sweetie.
Are
you going to ask me how I've been?
How have you been across the pond?
Well, I've been overworked and underappreciated.
Haven't we all?
Yes. Well, actually, I'm just joking. Really, you know, what have I been doing? I've been chasing a few baddies in Paris, rubbing up the Russians the wrong way, and having a bit of Humpty-Bumpty with a couple of British spies. Plus, I cleaned out the cupboards and I made a rice pudding.
There you go.
Yeah.
I'd say you had a full week then.
I'd certainly had a full week, and I'm a girl of many talents.
Yes, you are.
And you? How you been?
Waiting for this year to be over with.
Oh, Mark.
I'm fed up with it in so many different levels.
Aren't we all?
I literally feel like I'm living on a bizarre world. You know, it's just...
It's so strange, isn't it?
Well, you guys don't have the... You have some of the insanity, but you don't have the sheer amount of utter stupidity and insanity that's going on over here.
Yeah, I know it's pretty rough over there at the moment, but we keep off of politics, shall we?
No, I'm just going to say this is the worst I've ever seen things here in my life. You know, and this I don't know when the end is going to happen, because even after the election, whichever way it goes, it's still going to be a shitstorm.
Well, I think it's still going to be bad everywhere. You know, we're going through all this Brexit problem and everything. I still don't know whether I can move to Italy or France yet. You know? It's silly. We normally, a couple of years ago or a year ago, would have been just able to just go out there, buy the place, sell this, buy the place out there and move out. No worries at all. Now it's all about citizenship and this and that and passports and even new driving licenses. And you just don't, nothing is settled. It's driving me absolutely crazy.
Well, at least you don't have to worry about the driver's license since you don't drive.
No, but I do need the old man to be able to drive, don't I?
Yep, that's true.
Yeah. Who else is going to get me to the dress shop? Anyway, getting back onto... What was I going to say? Do you know, this is an age thing, isn't it? I've forgotten.
Well, you know, we're probably a little out of practice here, considering the last couple of weeks we've had our guests bail on us, and so we haven't had a show in about a month. So we're trying to get back into the groove here. I will make some announcements.
I know what I was going to say. I'll
let you go first.
Something's really strange going on?
Well, yeah.
Yeah, no. I mean, the whole, not just, even my husband's noticed it. You know, we've been watching the news, and I've done this many times before, been watching the news, and I say to him, that was on last night. Well, that happened yesterday. Well, that happened a couple of days ago. Now it's happening now. You know, it's absolutely crazy.
It wouldn't surprise me if the timelines reality's getting a little wonky because there's so much energy out there. In fact, maybe our guest tonight might have some thoughts on that too, considering it's there's something with an energy. There's something going on. I know a lot of people. We've talked with other mediums and psychics, and people who talk about where mankind is transitioning. We're moving up to a higher level, and God, I don't know. It feels like we're devolving back to caveman days. So I don't know, but I definitely know that the whole Earth is changing right now, and our Western society, especially here in the U.S., is just, there is so much unrest and change going on, and I don't know which way it's going to go. So we'll have to wait and see. But on a positive note, I just wanted to, make an announcement for people if they might have noticed some slight changes in the last couple of weeks, that we've changed our archive. We were downloading all of our podcasts using Podbean, and we have switched over to Spreaker. And a lot of you who follow us may not notice a difference because we're still going out on all of the traditional platforms, but we've added a bunch of platforms too, and it's I'm really happy with it. We're really expanding in reaching our audience. We still have our streaming radio server on the Paranormal UK radio network, paukradio.com, which also simulcasts on TalkStream Live, TuneIn Radio, and the Paranormal Radio app. But now our archived,
among others,
our archived podcast shows are now going out on a number of different platforms. We've got Apple Podcasts. We're going to be going out on Google Podcasts and iTunes Radio and YouTube, and just a lot of different.
iHeart, loads of them. Absolutely loads of them. We had so many before, but we've doubled it now.
Yep.
Well, that's what it seems like.
We're starting to see the difference. So, but we just want to thank everybody who's been tuning in and listening to all of the fantastic shows we have on our network. Our show here is the flagship show on the network, but we have almost a dozen more, and there's a couple more that we may be adding here in the near future. We've also had a couple of shows that were on hiatus for a while that have come back, and we're really happy they're back. And so why don't I use that as a segue to introduce our guest tonight, who is one of our radio show hosts. He and his brother have their show Twin Souls that airs monthly here on the Paranormal UK radio network. He's also a psychic medium and an author of a bunch of different books. And he has his new book out, Guardians of the Dead. And we want to welcome Philip Kinsella to the program. How are you tonight, Philip?
Hi, Mark and Irene. It's delighted to be on your show. I'm so honored. Thank you very much. I'm fine. And I will reiterate and state categorically that in response to your question, Mark, with regards to things being weird, and with Irene, yes, I agree with you. I mean, I've noticed that most definitely, and it's been a very strange time, and it is like walking through the Twilight Zone, literally.
It is, isn't it? Days go fast, time's going fast, it's speeding up.
I think what's happened is that through the lockdown, I think that there's been this kind of feeling of war between the good guys and the bad guys, but the unseen bad guys. And I think a lot of people are waking up to the fact, and we have to be very careful here because, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, I'm a conspiracy realist. And I think a lot of people have woken up to the fact that, this mechanical, robotic existence has come into question. And I think that the powers that be are utilizing this episode that we've gone through, trying to utilize it to their ends, I believe. But, that's another argument. And we have to be very, very careful when addressing certain issues because the system will silence you. They'll stop you from saying what you think and what you want to write. But it's been very weird. I've had a load of people that have spoken to me and saying they're feeling depressed, down, anxious, relationships have broken up. And it's just an awful time. And you have to pinch yourself sometimes to think, am I still in this world or am I somewhere else?
and you know what? We're not a political show, and we try to keep politics to a minimum. But the one thing that has made me so angry is watching all of these different social media platforms stifle free speech. One type of speech is fine as long as it leans one direction. But if it leans any other direction, it's unacceptable. They just block you out, and it's not fair, and it's ridiculous, and it's pushing one narrative, which to me seems like there's definitely someone in control, so that they could push just their narrative and make everybody fall in line, be good little sheeple. And I'm sick of it.
That's right. And it's the same with the UFO phenomena. Of course, as you both know, you're both experts within your own rights, within the paranormal. We're all in the same group. We're all together. Even with the UFO research, I've had some of my work last year compromised. And this is no ego.
You did?
No, yes, I've had my work compromised. I've had someone going into my system, and I think that was linked to a lot of the work that I did on the other UFO book that's coming out early next year, You the Public Deceived. But once again, you find that Mark is correct, and Irene, you're correct. The official narrative must be obeyed. And we've heard just recently of the very sad news of David Icke, who, he was allowed to say what he wanted. People are allowed to tune in and watch it if they wanted to. If they wanted to buy his books in Waterstones, they'd go in and buy them. No one was forcing them. But we can see that there's a very ugly unfolding plan of what do they call it? I can never pronounce the word.
Totalitarian.
That's correct. That's the one I'm looking for. I can never pronounce that word.
I would never be able to pronounce that one.
And I still can't, Irene. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, I'm a word
It's
snob.
got more than 5 letters.
But Philip, that's something I haven't heard about. Did they censor David Icke?
Yes, they've taken down all of his channels. They've removed his books from Waterstones because they consider him to be what is called a conspiracy theorist and putting people's lives in danger, apparently. But you see, I think a lot of people now are waking up to the fact that that the system is trying to control us and silence us, and even our platforms with regards to psychic exploration, UFO research. I mean, this is nothing new, but it looks like they've stepped up their program and I think they've done it in such a quick way, in a ruthless way now. And I think a lot of people are rebelling. I think a lot of people are waking up and they're smelling a rat because they know that there's something wrong. And of course, you daren't say anything about certain subjects for fear of being taken down or silenced. So there is, and it's no conspiracy. It's actually happening right in front of our eyes. And one of the other things that really annoys me, you say, Irene and Mark, about YouTube and platforms and things like that. Well, we can see now that Facebook are going forward now to implement a new procedure whereby if they believe that the contents are not, I can't find the word. If the contents aren't suitable for many of the audiences, they'll just block and take it down. And I think that we are seeing this progressive control that's taking hold now. So it's becoming a dictatorship. It's not the world that we would like to be in, basically.
It's the excuses that they use to take people down. You know what? I'm sorry. You can have, in my opinion, that's what free speech is about. In the U.S., we have the First Amendment. Now, unfortunately, where we're running into First Amendment problems, I mean, the First Amendment guarantees that the government cannot pass any laws that limits free speech, and gives you freedom to assemble and won't limit the press. And yet what's happening is we're living in a corporate environment now. And it's not the government passing these laws, it's these private corporations like Facebook who feel they can do whatever the hell they want and limit and cut people out. And so they effectively silence, and the media itself, even the mainstream media, goes along with it. One of the first victims over here, yeah, you talk about David Icke and his reputation in the UK, and a lot of people think he's a whack job, and other people believe in what he has to say with the conspiracies. And over here we had Alex Jones. And sure, Alex Jones is a blowhard, and he really pushes the whole globalist, elitist thing and conspiracy theories. But you know what? There was the freedom of, hey, if you didn't want to hear it, you change the channel. Or you don't follow that person. It's free speech. And it should be that somebody should be able to state their opinion, and you could disagree with it 150%. And yet, you know what? They can still say what they want to say. You could say what you can want to say. You could have a civil debate, which, civility has gone straight out the window, too. Nobody's civil to anybody anymore.
No.
And now it's all pushing one opinion.
You don't know what to say to people now because they go on the offence thing, don't they?
You'll see. I don't post anything on my page anymore because I don't.
Offended.
Well, you know what? It's like I recently posted one post. And all of a sudden, everybody started dogpiling on it, and it just reminded me why I'm not posting anymore. But see, even that kind of pisses me off because it's like, you know what? I can't say anything. You feel like you can't say anything without everyone dogpiling on you, Yes. And it's ridiculous. It's to the point where,
I know what you mean.
And again, I'm trying to just to keep it calm and professional, but my frustration levels are raising to the point of I'm starting to be reminded of 1776. Let's put it that way.
Good Lord. Well, it's like I've always said, I'm really worried now that they'll go in for the books next. Like, this is our only channels of getting alternative information out to the masses. And we're still going around in circles with not only the UFO phenomena, which is very close to my heart, and also the psychic phenomena, proving that consciousness to survive the state called death. And again, that is highly controversial because of the religious establishments and so on and so forth. But my idea is that, and looking at these subjects like you do in a very practical manner, in a I'm not a scientist, but kind of like a scientific manner, and yet we still have to follow the official narrative. We got nowhere fast. After all these years of debates and controversy, we're still chasing shadows. And that's why with the research that you and me and Ronnie and Irene and all the others do, we're looking for our own truths in life. And I think that's something the system doesn't want. I think the system wants us to be subservient to that and to obey it, to make us robots, to make us compliant, to make us cold towards one another. And this goes much deeper because I'm absolutely convinced that this is something that has been orchestrated and set up by, as you say, these corporate companies. The governments and the politicians are just puppets for their masters, as we know. But yeah, it doesn't look too good. It doesn't look good at all. But we've just got to keep fighting and believing in your truths, and to hell with those that don't believe or are ignorant, or don't at least have an open mind to consider these alternative aspects of otherworldly connections other than the life that we have here, which is pretty screwed up, to be honest with you, which we all know at this moment in time.
Yeah, it's I'm waiting for you. You're talking about them attacking books and media next. Yeah. Well, and in some ways they are. They're going. Schools and universities are back to banning books again. It's starting to look like Nazi Germany, book burnings.
Yeah, that's right.
And instead what they'll do is they'll just prevent you from buying these books that have controversial ideas anymore. Everywhere you go, it's just limiting freedoms. And this is a very scary time we're living in. And, and one of the things, and again, what I'd like to talk with you more about is, I've tried to look at things and from a spiritual perspective, and looking at the big picture that goes beyond this physical existence. What's going on down here right now? How can I put this? That what we are currently experiencing is a small part of, the total fabric of reality. Mm-hmm. And reality is far stranger than we can imagine, and stretching beyond the physical into the spiritual, into the multidimensional universe. And so I get curious to find out, and as you being a psychic medium, if you have any insight into, from the spiritual realm, the spiritual side, what are the views, or is there anything that, are we headed somewhere with this? Is this just, we're blindly, running the train off the rails here? I mean, I'm just curious to hear if there's any, where we could be going from here.
Well, I will tell you that I'm very practical, and I've never liked the word medium. I think interpreter. The first thing we have to understand is that, if you believe there is nothing after death, then that's fine. Consciousness is nullified. You no longer exist. But our understanding and research has proven beyond any shadow of doubt that consciousness survives that state called death. And it actually moves into what people call the multiverse, or the other side, or Nevada, or the Pleasant Plains. But what we do understand is that as biological units, the brain is a receiver, rather like your mobile phone. You've got the physical hardware, and that physical hardware is designed to receive a signal of your choosing, of numbers, of people, of information that you download into the mechanism. Now, the brain, our understanding is the brain works in much the same way, but on a more highly and sophisticated and involved manner than the mobile phone. But we're just giving a very simple analogy. And information is distributed, I believe, from the other side through to this mechanism. And we decided, obviously, to separate from what we call the other side to experience individualism. And I've always asked that question, what's it all about? Okay, we understand there's life after death, and those guys don't seem to have a problem when they pass over, because the information they relay through visual and sensory stimuli proves categorically that they've moved on. But I've always been arguing, what's the point? Why are we here? Why are we going through all this pain, this destruction? What is this all about the earth? Now, one of the things I do understand is that, and maybe I may be wrong here, but a feeling I get is that perhaps the one, or the Godhead, is learning more about itself through us as its vessels as we come down and go through these varied experiences, memories that we collate, connections that we create, evolving. And then when we die, when we pass over, when the biological vehicle is no longer needed and that consciousness is sent back into the Godhead, maybe the Creator is learning more about itself through this form of separateness and evolving, creating more through this creation process, and that we ourselves perhaps are, rewarded with this this process of immortality. The only thing is that I do know, I don't profess to be able to channel information from them saying what it's all about. I mean, I'm strictly on the ball with evidence, survival evidence. One of the curious things I found through doing readings for people, or demonstrating clairvoyance as they call it, is that those on the other side never talk about God. Well, that would make sense because we're all probably connected to it. They never talk about religion, and they don't tell you what they're doing, because I don't think that if you said that your grandma's now making a cake or doing the flowers, that would be taken seriously. And to be honest with you, I couldn't really tell you. All I can tell you is that their information that they pass back to us proves that there is conscious survival. My other question that I wanted to ask is...
That is
sorry?
True.
Yeah.
That is true. You never get anything about religion. You never get anything about God.
No. And practically speaking, these are facets that I'm absolutely fascinated with. And I know with Mark and with you, Irene, I mean, I don't deal with nonsense. I mean, like with the UFO form of investigations, we have to be absolutely practical and on the ball with this. But one of the fascinating things that I find with all of this is why the secrecy? Why the secrecy towards our evolution, as it was called? And, this opens up a whole can of worms where religious ideologies and all that is concerned. But I think that, this is way out and only a theory here. I can't prove this. Can most of anything in the paranormal field be proven? Because it's always like chasing shadows. But I believe that the Earth was created perhaps as an experiment for us to go through the experience of being separate. And people that I read for say, I want to be myself and I'm individual. And I said, well, of course you have your individualism here. But our understanding of the NDE or near-death experiences and people who have crossed over, they more or less bring a kind of like a theme that's very similar to one another, i.e. they go across towards a light or a tunnel or across a stream. They meet their dead loved ones. There's an empirical level of conscious understanding of universal love. And I believe that because I had an experience when we lived in South Africa many years ago when I was a kid, when I nearly drowned. And this is something that I put in the new book that's out, Guardians of the Dead. I didn't go down a tunnel of light or anything, but everything around me was more transient, more real, more light than anything I'd seen before, and I remembered it. So, with this subject of life after death, it's extremely controversial, and you'll get people who will profess anything, but I like to stay right on the fence with it, and I look at things practically, and dealing with evidence is one of the things, but it is fascinating nevertheless. But no, those guys, I think probably they're not worried on the other side because they know we're going to pass over at some point, and that this is just an experience. But I think, when we wake up, everything may be very different. I call it the awakening, so that when the consciousness is separated from the narrow field of frequency or awareness that it's recording in this life, I think we awaken. But I do joke, Irene and Mark, I do joke. Now listen here, I say to them, we must have been as drunk as clams on the other side to come down here. They would probably say, have you heard of Earth? And everyone shuts back and says, oh, yes, we've heard of Earth.
I'm waiting to see a drunk clam.
Well, I can tell you what, you've got to have a sense of humor with this. And I think, to be honest with you, when we do lose a loved one, I mean, that is like walking through hell. There is nothing on this planet, not religion, not mediums, not science, nothing that can get you through that pain or that loss. But one of the things I found is that it seems in time to give you more strength. And I believe that when you go beyond the boundaries of what we've been taught within conventional education and scientific, avenues of, no, we're just a living, breathing machine that dies. When you go through that grief, something happens to you. We can't always explain it. And this is something that I feel that you and Mark and many other people who've gone through the most tragic losses and the most difficult experiences, it kind of changes us. Even though we go through anger or pain, we begin to find something more. It's almost as if we're searching for something within our soul that we can't speak of, that we can't explain, but it is driving us nevertheless. So I do believe that there is purpose to our existence to a degree, but I think these echelons who are controlling and pulling the strings at the moment, I think the game's up for them at some point. I think, this whole control, I think it all went pear-shaped down here. I think it shouldn't have gone the way it should have gone.
No, it's certainly right there. It shouldn't have gone the way it did. Right, so your book, Guardians of the Dead. So for the audience, do you want to explain a little bit about what you think these guardians, who you think these guardians are?
Well, it's interesting because I never wanted to be a medium. I didn't want nothing to do with mediumship because there's more to lose than there is to gain. And people expect you to go out there and you've got to be 100%, 100%, 100%. And if you fail once, you're no good.
That's right.
One of the things I was more fascinated was finding those who had crossed over. So Guardians of the Dead, I did write another book that the publishers brought back out. I think it was my very first published book by a publisher called Reaching for the Divine. And that was brought out by Kaplan Publishing Limited. And this is the second psychic book, the only second one that I've written, called Guardians of the Dead. And I was watching Guardians of the Galaxy, and I know people will laugh, and this thought came into my head. It said, you should really explore the psychic realm a little bit more. Well, what about calling it Guardians of the Dead? Well, I sat rooted to the spot thinking, what a bloody good title that is. So anyway, I wanted to write an honest, no-nonsense book about mediumship and also of the problems that mediums encounter and, of course, of the very bizarre experiences that myself and my twin have gone through. But, hey, everyone's important. It's not, it's not the Kinsella show here. The book is to express to the audience that we are guarded and guided by unseen forces. Now, most people believe that the unseen forces are a higher part of our consciousness. I'm not going to dispute that. But one of the things I will tell you that did throw me was that in my late 20s, when I'd gone to see a brilliant medium after my maternal grandmother had died, and I stopped...
Who was that?
Kathleen King, my maternal grandmother.
Oh,
so
the
medium she was called Pearl. That was her real name, and she was only young, and she used to work for the FBI in America. She used to go out there and try and find cold soul cases. Anyway, I'd booked to go and see her, and I remember driving to this place. God, this was just past when Princess Diana had died, because my grandmother passed the same month and the same year as Princess Diana. Yeah. And I was driving there, and I had to stop and ask two old dears how to get to this place, because mobile phones weren't really frequent in them, really around much then. So anyway, I went to go and see the medium, and when I sat down in front of her,
hang on a minute, Philip, hold on. Two old dears, Mark. It's two elderly ladies to you.
Two elderly ladies.
I figured that one out.
Yeah, sorry about that. So two elderly ladies, I stopped and asked them how to get to this place, and they told me. So I eventually found where the medium was located. I got out the car. She knew I was there to try and discredit her, even though I believed in psychics, but I was kind of like on the fence with her. When I sat down, she looked at me and she said to me, your grandmother's here who passed with cancer. She said, you've come here to test me. And then she said, did you stop and ask two people how to get here? Well, I nearly fell off the chair. And she said to me, you have a North American Indian as a spirit guide. And I thought, oh, my goodness, here we go. I rolled my eyes up thinking spirit guides. But you know what? She proved me wrong because she was right. And when I started getting involved with mediumship or training, it's a very long story, but I meditated and thought, okay, so you're a spirit guide, so who are you? And he showed me this image of wolves and a North American Indian playing a flute, and I thought, wolf song, you're trying to tell me your name through symbology. Okay, if that's your name, prove yourself to me, prove that's your name. The next day I was at work, and there's a Canadian guy, lovely guy, came up to the till point where I was serving, and I was looking at his chest, and he was looking at me, looking at his chest, because he was wearing a leather jacket, and underneath the leather jacket was a T-shirt. And on the T-shirt were these wolves and a North American Indian playing a flute. So at that point, I knew, and I was shocked, because I went into a stockroom, and I was standing against the wall so shocked. And these signs kept coming. And it's weird, but we do have what they call spirit guides. And, I don't know what people's take is on it.
But yours isn't. You've got the lovely North American Indian, and I got a plain old monk.
But it didn't stop there, Irene and Mark. I wanted more. I was like, no, I need more. So I then go over to some friend's house, an old couple, and they used to be into all the paranormal, and they had loads of books. And they said, we bought you a present. And I said, well, what's that? And they took it out, and I have it upstairs in my room. It's a statue of, and they didn't know anything that I was doing. It was a statue of a North American Indian with the wolf on its head. So these signs kept coming through, and I kept thinking, okay, it's a discarnate entity known as a spirit guide who is on the other side. So what do you do? What's your job? And of course, what happened then was that I then got involved with a lot of mediumship training, psychic schools, and you name it. But the book is a description of other people's experiences with these discarnate entities, and also the difficulties I had and the struggles I had in trying to accept and understand of the spirit world, and also of spirit guides and angels, as it were. But that's basically a summary of what the book entails, giving us hope to reach out to these alternative energies, intelligences, guiding forces. So it's very different from the UFO books that I wrote. But as I said, the two subjects are a passion of mine, getting to the truth.
Well, very similar to one of my books, isn't it, Mark?
Very similar.
Don't ask me the title of it, because I don't know.
My Life Among the Spirits by Irene and Mark.
Wow. So there is a lot in it then, you see. I think we're all connecting with the same thing, but bring it through in our own varied interpretations and beliefs within our lives. So that's amazing, incredible. Well done, Irene. Well done, you.
Well, I met my monk in a country lane when I was about 6 or 7 years old.
Oh. Blimey. But they are real, and it's really weird because I know that the American psychic, love her or hate her, Sylvia Brown, she did say something very strange. She said that the more you talk to your spirit guide, the stronger the connection becomes. And I believe that this, I think with our consciousness, that our connection with because I believe that we're all connected as one hub, one big mind, and that this narrow field of consciousness can be controlled. It's being controlled here. Excuse me. It's being controlled on this earth plane. But I believe that through the process of belief, we can start to bring forward information from the main hub of creation. And I believe that once we start to believe in something, it actually becomes a manifestation of reality. And this is what I believe happens, because belief shapes reality, and there are alternative dimensions of awareness that we're beginning to explore and understand. And why not? If there are UFOs, if they exist, and we still have a blank page after 70 years of trying to understand what they are, we use theoretical application, which is all that we have. But if they exist, then sure, there is life after death. I've seen it. And I even had a friend come to see me in full view after he passed with cancer. And that proved to be categorically that there is life after death. So, whichever way we look at it, however confusing it becomes, because I'm not here like anyone to disrupt or make someone believe in it. I wanted to write the book to show that this is possible, because if it's happened to me, I can't be the only one. And the other reason I wanted to write that book as well is, Irene and Mark, is because a lot of the books that I was reading from certain mediums that were very much in the media and that were on the market at the time that I was buying never said anything about the difficulties with mediumship or the problems they had. And you'll find in the book there is a chapter called Those Bad Readings, because I wanted to show people that we are fallible, that things can go wrong, that we can make mistakes, that we can get things twisted round the wrong way. And that makes us very human, because and I think if other mediums are very honest with themselves, they never seem to want to, bring forward those problems. I will tell you something that will make you laugh here. When I was developing, I had a lady come round, and this is not necessarily a bad reading, excuse me, but it made me laugh. She sat in the chair and I sat with her. She was only a young lass. And I said to her, I said, your father's here. She said, oh, yes. I said, I've got your father here. But I've got to find out how her father passed, you see, and all the other stuff that goes with it. So as I sat there, I said to her, oh, your dad passed with a congenital heart defect. It was a heart attack. It went very quickly. She said, oh, yes. And then I sat there and I covered my eyes and I said, why can't I see anything? I can't see a damn thing. And she reached over and she touched me. She said, darling, she said, he was blind. I didn't even know, but I was doing it. and she understood what was coming through. So, you know, I think it's amazing how they kind of like subtly integrate those thoughts into our conscious mind. And I think it's wonderful. But, you know, I just wanted to write another book to show people that, you know, a few personal experiences and also of how the process works theoretically through theoretical application. You know, it's no big mystery because people think you're a medium, and I hate that word, as I said before. I think interpreter. It's so Victorian.
Yeah. Well, I've always hated that word, haven't I, Mark?
Yep.
It's like, you know, it's like a bunch of Victorians sitting around a table rapping under the table. You know, I've always said that, you know, we have to go forward with our understanding of how consciousness works. And I think we've been going through a process of conscious liberation now because it's been so controlled. And maybe it could be there's another part to this that might be possible, that our consciousness is actually rebelling, and that because it's rebelling, it's forcing these alternative dimensions into our reality. Excuse me. Because we've been so hoodwinked into, you know, grow up, do as we do, learn as what you're being taught, you know, toil the soil, pay your taxes, don't ask any questions, then die. And I think what's happening is that this whole connection of consciousness has had enough. I think that it's trying to force its way through, and it's doing it in a way to many individuals, millions of individuals upon the earth, in many forms and facets, and trying to say, look, you know, look at us. And we say, well, you're not meant to be there. You're not meant to exist. And they're like, well, you'll have to deal with it because I'm here. And then we have to turn to the system. And the system is telling us categorically, and this is what I'm like Mark, I've got passion in my blood and my bones with all of this, with the way that things are happening. I'm really, really annoyed, and for so long. And you say, well, either I'm lying or the system's lying. So which of us is lying? They say, first of all, that UFOs don't exist. And we know damn well they exist.
Well, we see something up in the sky, don't we?
Yeah, and the same with spirit communication. Yeah. I use the word spirit very lightly because I don't like that word, or dimensional communication. You know, I think that we're beginning to understand that we're far more amazing than the system has given us credit for. And the system has been frightened that we will discover ourselves, reveal for ourselves that we're more than just flesh and blood entities with a sell-by date, that we have a mind, that we can think, and we have opinions, and that, you know, we want to explore these other areas which have been categorically contained and silenced or pigeonholed. So, you know, I believe that the psychic part is only a small facet to a much bigger dynamic connection with alternative dimensions of awareness. And you know, so that's where I sort of like based the book into that area.
Do you think you've got that far yet, Philip?
No, I don't even think I've touched the tip of the iceberg. I still don't. May I say here, I still don't know my arse from my elbow, Irene and Mark. I have to tell you that the more I look into this, the more you seem to go down the rabbit hole, and all we have is theoretical application. You know, with all of us, it doesn't make us clever or smart. I'm not any of those things, but you know, I'm honest and I'm truthful and I'm black and white, and I like to look at things in a slightly different way. And I think not only with the psychic exploration or this, you know, wonderment and mystery, there's no mystery to be had with it. They link through the mind and through the brain. And so do a lot of the UFO cases through abduction scenarios and all these different things. So we're looking at something that is quite unique.
The brain is the key. The mind, well, not the brain, it is the mind that's the key.
Correct. That's right. That is the pull to everything, to all of creation. And it's filtering through to us on a very low level of conscious awareness.
It's coming through to us, and we're sending the information back.
Absolutely. And I believe that we're recording as like a loop, and that the reason we forget our heritage on the other side is because if we knew where we were from, we just sit there and vegetate and just wait until we die because we know we're going to go back. But I do believe that there is purpose. The other thing that's interesting is most people say to me about when they have readings, can you read my future? Well, Well,
I
I'm like,
used to have come and
well,
ask me what horse was going to win in the races, and things like that.
But, I think there are certain things that are cemented. I think like a computer game that's been created, you have the platform that's been created, and then you come onto the computer game and you have free will to go left or right. Unfortunately, in this life, we don't have the opportunity of starting over again. We just have to keep going the route that we've taken. But I believe that we may ourselves have created that platform. Quite how we do that, I couldn't tell you. But I do know that a lot of people ask me, is the future preordained? And I will say to them, to a degree, yes, but not all of it. I think we have a certain amount of free will. 9/11, and I will tell you, and it's in the book, and I think I put it in another book, the night before 9/11 happened, I didn't see anything, but I certainly felt something. And what I felt was very interesting, because this leads to something else that I'll say very quickly here. Before I went to bed that night, I had 3 implosions into the solar plexus. So it felt like the first explosion, or implosion I would call it, felt like it was the most awful feeling I've ever had before. The second one I had felt like all my atoms had smashed and scattered. The third one, well, I thought I had an aneurysm and my hair was standing on end, then it stopped. Now, was it linked with, was I picking up something from 9/11? I can't prove that, but I am absolutely sure that I was, because a lot of people were picking up on stuff.
This was the night before, was it?
The night before. It's in my book. Now,
so
what
you were picking up on the energy in the atmosphere.
Now, what's interesting is this. The atoms were being scattered. Now, Dr. Judy Wood wrote a book, Where Did the Towers Go? And Andrew Johnson, another researcher.
No relative to Mark.
Yeah.
There's a lot of us out there.
Bless her. He was in touch with her. And do you know what? They reckon there was some kind of energy field that was disabling the atomic structure of those buildings, and because they become dust. Now, with regards to future events, it could be possible that if there is an intent strong enough from many minds, that will somehow solidify into the conscious pool of intent and become a reality. Whereas most other things that we think about are cancelled out because it has no real form or, strength or, belief behind it. So I believe that we create our own futures, but other people can also create an event, providing that event is strong enough for other minds to connect with. So it sounds a bit kooky, but anyway, that's that part. Sorry if I sound mad.
Well, no, not really. When you think about the power of prayer and everything,
Yes, that's right. Absolutely. Belief shapes reality. A belief, a complete turnaround in the way that we, see things, understand things. I think when we submit with emotion, a real emotion, and there's an intent behind that, I believe that something happens within the vibrational energy field of the body that's linked to the mind, and that other forces are aware of that. Whether good or malevolent, we don't know. You get people who deal with darker aspects of consciousness, and they bring all of that into their energy field. So, I do believe, going back to what Mark said, with something extraordinary happening with good and bad. And it's always been a constant theme on this planet, hasn't it?
Yeah. Going back to mediumship, I felt, because, I'm as old as God, I am. So, and I've been like this since God was a boy. I never went through any training like you or anything. Mine just naturally developed. But I felt that when I was doing all that, I felt like I was in kindergarten.
Yes.
It was a training of the mind, the consciousness, for me to be able to reach where I am now with the information that flows through me now, which Mark will tell you is mind-blowing, in fact. So Mark tells me, I don't remember half of it, but Mark tells me this.
So, that's interesting. Very interesting. We're all creators.
Do you agree, Mark? Sorry, Philip. Do you agree?
No, I find it rather boring.
The mediumship side was like kindergarten. It was a learning that I had to go through. That it kind of Oh God, how can I explain it
Well, I look at it as the same as when we talked about, we started in the paranormal itself, I mean, what we've learned over the last 20 years alone has drastically changed my outlook and paradigm on everything, on the spiritual, from reality to, the very fabric of existence is just, we've got it so wrong. What we're taught is absolutely wrong in every conceivable way.
Correct. And
we're living a life based on lies and materialism.
Correct.
So, if people took the time to look for those signals that come into their life every day. We're taught as kids to ignore everything. I can't tell you how many times my mother, I tell her, hey, I heard something or something just happened. She says, it's your imagination, and they drill it out of you.
Yeah. Absolutely. It's like imagination is a little box that's open now and again in the head. I mean, the imagination is a reality because it's part of mind, it's part of creation, and we are all co-creators in this process of life. Unfortunately, I think what's happening is that we are seeing a real war, emotional, if I dare call it psychic war playing out here, of a lot of people waking up, and God bless them because they know that things are wrong. They're fed up. They're tired of going around the same wheel day in and day out. Do as you're told. Pay your taxes, pay your bills. Don't ask any questions. Control. People are just
life's so bloody boring, isn't it?
Yeah, but this is the thing. We have to restructure our understanding of what life actually means. It is not a ceaseless, meaningless existence. We all are important. We all mean something. We're all part of the sum total of the same thing, exploring things in different ways. And I do believe that we're going to see a lot more occurring of these unbalancings of minds, of a lot of disruption, but good things, I believe, are going to start to come out of this because those in darkness are being exposed for what they are. I think there's only a minority of them, and they think they're very powerful, controlled through money and through politics, but they can be brought down very easily. I think they can be brought down. I think if push comes to shove, I think people will take their stand and bring the whole edifice collapsing down, and that's something they're fearing right now because a lot of them feed from fear. They control through fear-mongering, on AOL, bullying. For instance. Yeah, look at AOL, for instance. If you go on the news section, it says on there, warning, disturbing footage, but they want you to watch it. And there's hardly anything that's really good on most of the channels. So Mark is correct as well. We're seeing a lot of negativity. You put something up on a post on your Facebook, you are attacked. And it's like, we've got a lot of mushrooms that suddenly raise themselves out of the darkness and come attacking you, and you don't know who these people are. And of course, then it throws you emotionally and brings you down. But as I said, that's why I very rarely mention anything on mine anymore. I just post on my Facebook about, events or whatever, trying to promote other people. And that's as far as it goes, because I think, a lot of people are still locked in that old materialistic and mental connection with limited view of how they see themselves and how they see reality. So, yeah, there we are. But I still haven't got a clue, Irene and Mark.
well, you know what? One of the things I'm looking at your chapter summary for the book, and you have on chapter 12, it says hell. And I'm going, are you talking about current events?
Well, let's just put it this way. I had an experience that categorically proved to me that there are different states of dimensions, as it were, and I think some people tend to create their own. I think there is always redemption for the soul. I'm not going to dispute that, but the plane that I saw was stagnatory, and I believe that corrupted souls who have corrupted through greed, destruction, all sorts of different things, if they haven't learnt to love, to forgive, to understand, to explore, to create, and they've just used their life to, destroy, then I don't know the whole mechanics of this, because I'll have people jumping on the bandwagon telling me that I'm wrong. but I can tell you that I saw a lower plane and it was very stagnatory. I didn't see any flames. It was just all rock and, I thought was rubbish was moving around, and they were actually, I don't know what you would call them, but I think they were the vestiges of what they had been in this form. But there again, you see, we look at it in a very humanized way. The way that we view creation and the way that we think that we are just human. And I always say to people, well, I think you'll be surprised, because when our eyes are opened, when we awaken to the brand new day of our life back on the other side, I think we'll be very surprised, because there is more than just the planet Earth in the universe, and people tend to just put it in a little box. We're on a little planet. The planets go round it in a solar system. There's a sun. There's no other life. You live and die. You're told you should. No. See, Mark's
There's got to be more to it than that.
There is, and you and Mark know that as well. You know that.
Yes, but it is true. It's true what you're saying.
And I think that we need to kind of try to understand that life does means something, that it's not just random and chaotic, that there is, that you are important, that Mark is important, that we have hopes, dreams, desires, passions, drives. We have all these things that, sometimes come along and inspire us, and then sometimes we're brought down. But you have to remember that your life is your journey. And that's why I love The Hobbit, the film The Hobbit, and the book by J.R.R. Tolkien, Professor Tolkien, because it started off where the Hobbit, wanted to live a simple life and loved his handkerchiefs and his china and live, and then he went on this adventure. And at the end of the adventure, he was never the same again. So, I think for all of us that we're on some type of adventure that's just been hijacked for a very long time, and that we're trying to make sense out of it. But without drama, without the fight, without the difficulty, there is no challenge. And I think as humans, we're best when we're being challenged. When we're doing something, that's when we really give it our all. I believe that there is destiny, and that this is all part of something that must have meaning, at the end of the day.
So what we're going through at the moment, the whole world is going through at the moment, do you think that is for a reason? Obviously, people have woken up. Nature started getting back to normal again, the way it should be, and one thing or another. And people were going out into their gardens. They were appreciating the countryside more. They were appreciating where they lived more. Colours were more vivid. Didn't you notice that? How colours were more vivid?
Yeah, it was beautiful, wasn't it? But now you see the Draconian Empire wants all back. And I believe that they are going to bring in a new stratagem towards their plan that a lot of people will reject and not go for. And I think at that point, we'll start to see some very interesting developments if it pans out. Yeah. And I think at that point, after this, what happens? Well, I think it's going to collapse. I think the whole structure is going to collapse, to be honest with you. I think we're seeing that now. And I'm not a person of doom and gloom, but something's got to happen. This control has got to cease because it's senseless. It's ridiculous. And it's getting worse. And I think people have the right to voice their opinion, to stand up and be counted, and to say, we have a voice and a mind. And as long as you're not harming anyone or controlling anyone or, doing anything bad, we have a voice and we must be heard. We're being drowned out by the dictators who want to take full supreme control and trying to make all of us look like we're idiots that have just come out of a mental asylum. But I think, to be honest with you, I think we'd be horrified if you learn more about who controls them and who's behind the curtain, as it were, in the background. I think we'd be very surprised.
Who do you think? Who do you think there is at the top there that's doing this controlling?
Well,
who's pulling the strings?
I'm just going to use the word the Draconian Empire. I think that I think there's been a war going on, and we've been led to believe that it's all fairy tale and folklore. But there are darker forces, and most people are able to tune into those darker energies. It sounds like something from science fiction, but it's actually science fact. And that, we are soul, we come through from the light. There are other souls here who probably connect with the darkness. And this is something I think that we're seeing that's panning out. Even since in biblical times, there's been these wars and, corruption and destruction and killings and murder. Nothing's changed. It's just in a modern era now. If people were to read this story in 2,000 years' time in the future, it'll probably be like biblical times to them. So, I do believe that there is alternative energies or consciousnesses that are working in the background using most people as their puppets because it's power, control. And, and it's obviously suiting some kind of darker agenda, because otherwise, people say, well, who's pulling the strings? Well, as I said before, I think we'll be very surprised at the end of the day, but I will just use the word the draconian connection link there. And I'm not going to go into too much detail. I never would have believed that I'd be saying it myself, but I do believe that most definitely.
Mm-hmm. You, Mark?
Well, I mean, that's the one thing that I've always lately been looking into is that connection between the spiritual world and the UFO phenomenon. And again, looking at things from, instead of like an afterlife per se, looking at things as multiple dimensions of reality. And these UFO, these aliens, as we call them, they're still the people who think they're nuts and bolts UFOs coming from distant star systems. But in reality, a lot of it is they're coming through from another reality. They're right here, just like an arm's length away. And there's even a lot of them that are living here on this planet with us. And just, we have very limited perception.
You're talking about my mother.
Do you know, Mark, you're absolutely right, Reed. You're absolutely right there. And of course, a lot of my theoretical work before has been linked with that. And I know I suffered quite a bit, but I think people are beginning to realize that we have to look outside the box of the nuts and bolts syndrome and look at this in a fresh new perspective. So you're absolutely right, Mark. Yes, you're correct. Yes.
Have you ever connected with one?
Well, I had an experience back in 1989 that has been documented, but we're still trying to explore that. Another brilliant researcher called PAUK is looking into that because he found some very interesting connections with regards to the experience. UFOs, yes. My brother and I, Ronald, many, many times. The last ones were recorded and has been documented in a new UFO book coming out and been analysed, was on the 9th of April 2016 at 11:15 at night. Mm-hmm. And that was the last time I saw the UFOs. I haven't seen anything since, to be honest with you. Nothing since that time, because normally it's about every 3 years, but they must have thought, got bored of you, mate, I'm off.
Mark connects with one every day, don't you, Mark?
Yeah, I deal with one several times a week. Every time I talk to Irene.
Oh, it's great. You guys are great. It's fantastic.
Yeah, this is why no one gets to see me, you see. Nobody knows what I look like.
Nobody wants to see the reptilian eyes and scaly skin.
Mark's hit it on the nail.
Oh, yeah.
Definitely.
I had my Brian descaling me yesterday. You cut your nails, I descale. I don't know. No. Joking apart.
We were talking about spirit guides earlier, and you were mentioning that, you have, Irene, you have your monk, and Philip, you have a Native American spirit guide. And I'm not sure who my spirit guide is, but I'm pretty sure they're in rehab.
Well, me and my spirit guide, we're not talking at the moment because we broke up because I kept calling him Monkey. So... Well, we're not friends at the moment.
You've got to have a particular sense of humor with all of these subject matters. I mean, we're very serious, and I'm dedicated, completely loyal to the subject, and black and white. but you do have to have a sense of humor. It kind of like breaks the monotony and the frustration of trying to get our head around, these subject matters that we're all exploring. But I think it's fascinating. And I think the more we explore, I think the more we're finding within ourselves on an individual basis that, it's wonderful. So, you just got to believe in yourself and believe in what you do. And you keep, pushing forward.
Yeah, you said earlier on, if you believe in what you say, you believe in what you do and everything, and eventually you will reach those heights where you are pulling information in.
Yes, well, I did come from a group the other day. I was doing a function, a clairvoyant function. It went down fantastic. But then, at the end of it, I was told by someone that, I would be channeling something. And I thought, well, I don't think I'll be doing that just yet. I mean, it's hard enough doing clairvoyance and understanding the application of spirit communication.
Take it from me, Philip. You really don't want to be doing it.
No, I don't.
Well,
think I will.
You never remember it. You just get irritated when you find out later they've been talking to me and you have no idea.
Or your face turns into a reptilian, Mark, behind the scenes, and it's like, bring out the music, the horror music, or the psycho music. Hurt.
Yeah, well, I channel them. I bring them in and one thing or another, and they talk to Mark. They don't talk to me. They talk to Mark.
Well, even on a small scale, and we mentioned this before when we've had Whitley Strieber on the last couple of times, and his wife has come through, and you start saying things that are definitely out of character for you, but fit right in with him and his wife, because he's still in contact with.
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's amazing. I mean, I haven't had anything to do with Whitley Strieber. I've always bought his books and supported him, but I have heard, yes, his wife passed over, Anne, wasn't it, Anne?
Yes.
I tell you, she is a lovely lady. I've never met her.
No.
Not in the physical, anyway. But
Well,
she
that's
is a
amazing.
very lovely lady.
And I like Whitley. I think he's a really amazing guy. I have nothing but respect for that man.
Fools, though. She don't take prisoners, and she don't take fools.
Oh, good Lord, blimey. But as I said, I have the fullest respect for Whitley Strieber and for his work. And I know that, a lot of his theoretical aspects and books and things are amazing. So that's something incredible, yes. So I know he went into mediumship. He's got a new book out called A New World, isn't it, or something like that?
Yes, we had him on talking about that earlier in the year. And but last year we had the one book that I really recommend of his, that it deals some with the visitors thing, but it deals mostly with the afterlife communication he's had with his wife, Anne, called The Afterlife Revolution. And it's a fantastic book. And
I've read it.
Oh, you did read it. Okay.
I haven't read anything of his.
Well, what was funny is when we interviewed him, at the very end, he was like quoting something. He was reading it, and he was doing it in such a dramatic fashion. And after the show, after he'd signed off, Irene and I were talking, and I started commenting on it, like, yeah, he's being a little overly dramatic and reading, like he was performing it. And she just goes, oh, that's just Whitley being Whitley. And I stop, and I'm going, what? Because Irene doesn't really know him. and the way it came out, I thought I've actually heard that before, that same saying before in one of his earlier books. So we called him back up and we told him about it, and he started laughing. He goes, yep, that was Anne.
What's very interesting is that, I mean, I can't make any comparisons with the great man himself, but I will tell you that, the UFO phenomena, and then the experience that I had, and then the psychic exploration, and then, doing the mediumship and everything. And I'm absolutely convinced that on a theoretical level of conscious awareness, that there are connections and patterns to all of us, and that sometimes they come in at certain points within your life. I mean, I'm very, very much still linked very deeply with UFO research. I'm working on a new book called Visitors from the Void, but I understand what Whitley says, because I'd love to have a chat with that guy. I'm sure he'd be so amazing to speak to. So you're very lucky to connect with him. So he's great. But yeah, his books are fantastic. I love them.
Well, Philip, I'll not saying I have connections, but I can. If you guys ever wanted to interview him on your show, I can introduce you.
That would be absolutely awesome. Thank you very much. That would be great. Lovely.
Okay. Well, I think we're coming up to the end here. So we wanted to promote your book, Guardians of the Dead. Now, where can people get a hold of that right now?
Well, I didn't bring that through any publisher this time. That went through Amazon. So you can get it on Amazon as paperback and also as Kindle. And it's I think it's about 312 pages in paperback, and Kindle's about 200 something pages. But you can get it on Kindle and Amazon, and it's available there.
And when is your next appearance?
Oh, right. Well, I just did one a few nights ago. And you mean clairvoyantly? Or
yeah, sure. Or at a conference, or what do you have coming up?
Yeah, I did a conference last year at Pontefract, and I did a talk that went down really great. And there were amazing people there. Philip Kinsella is a British UFO royalty, and he's a lovely guy. And I'm doing another talk in up north. Big conference there for the Outer Limits magazine that's run and created by Chris Evers, and I'm doing a talk.
Who
in
has
September
a radio show with us?
Yes, yeah, that's right. So I'm really honoured, and the new UFO book, Philip has told me that he's bringing that out on the 1st of January of the new year, 2021. That's called "You, the Public Deceived: The Grand UFO Deception," which explains why. We have been lied to by the system telling us that UFOs don't exist when they are real. And there are a lot of cases in there, incredible cases from some wonderful people and, very within MUFON and other areas of the UFO network. I was stunned and amazed by most of the cases that came out there. But I know it's a little bit difficult, and strange that I write UFO books and I also write psychic books, but there is a connection with consciousness, and this is what we're exploring within our research. So yeah, that's lovely.
Well, fantastic.
UFOs above and ghosts below.
you bet.
It's a Barry Taff book, that, everyone.
And Mark, I've got to say it because you have the wonderful Jackie Stallone over there, Sylvester Stallone's mom.
Okay.
And she came over here and did something on Big Brother, and I love this saying and the way she said it because I love it, and I'm going to do it in American if I can. It's like when you think of all the stuff that goes on here and going on here, she'll stand there and say, "What the hell is going on around here?" I just had to get that in. I'm sorry. I just love her so much. I think she's so wild and wacky. You just got to love her.
Fantastic. Yeah. Well, Philip, thank you very much for coming on the show today. As usual, it's always wonderful talking with you.
Thank you very much. And it was great to relink with you, Mark and Irene. And, for all of everyone else, we've all been going through a very difficult time, really hard times. I hope and I pray that you find the strength and a little bit of hope within your hearts to keep moving forward and believe in yourself, and we'll get through this. We will get through this.
Okay, lovely. Yeah, that's fine. When's your show back on? When's the next Twin Souls?
Well, we actually just posted the brand new episode last week, and yours is a monthly show, so it comes out the last Thursday of every month. So the new episode is up now, and then the next one will be out the end of September. Yeah,
that's Philip Mantle, and then we've got Dr. Rubinstein coming on, and we've got loads of other personalities and authors and researchers all lined up. So we're going to go from strength to strength. It's just been a very strange year, very difficult year for us, me and my twin, because we haven't been very well, as I said. But we're getting there. We're getting there. We're getting there.
Like I said, you'll be all right, the pair of you.
Bless you. Thank you very much.
All right. And thank you, everyone, for tuning in to another episode of the Paranormal UK Radio Show, the flagship show here on the Paranormal UK Radio Network. And Irene, where can everybody find us?
Everywhere, people, everywhere.
That's it.
And do you know that amazes me, Philip? He can say it all in one go. I have to have about 5 takes to open the show. He closes the show in one go.
I think it's awesome. But I've got to say thank you very much for having me on your wonderful show. I'm very honored indeed.
Sure thing. All right. Well, thanks again. And everybody, we will catch you next week with a brand new episode. Hopefully from this point forward through most of the rest of the year, we should be back with weekly shows. So stay tuned, and we will talk to you all next week. Have a good one.
Okay, bye.